Okay, so without going into too much detail with that, after that I left and I trusted that God was going to, or Johnny Cash was going to be contacting people. And here's the thing. This was during the time, I guess, I read books, and I don't want to go into too much detail because I need the books to verify a lot of the literature I read. But basically, the reason why graveyards are very sacred is because the body doesn't die, but it transitions. Okay? So, from what I read, there are these elements, atoms, some kind of cells, what have you, that they slowly rise up. They're life forms, little tiny life forms, might even go unseen to the eye, and they seek out to find new life that they want to be a part of. In other words, as the body's transitioning, some people would call it decomposing, there's still life within that body, and it seeks out other means of survival. And so I was there, and my guitar was there and stuff, and I didn't want it to feel like I was trying to take something from somebody, but in my situation, I guess you could say that I was kind of desperate. And that's why I did what I did. I didn't know what else to do. And I'm glad I did it, because it's one of the most intimate and precious occasions that I ever had. And if I had to do life over again, I would not skip that part. Seeing the flag go across my guitar, and seeing the butterfly chimes that June's head go, to me it was like a comforting feeling that maybe in that moment June was approving of Tracilyn. And I guess that's what I was kind of seeking out as I'm going through my life, is acceptance and approval, as maybe most of us, if not all of us, are in our lifetime. And then after that, and I'll talk about that later, I continued on with the ritual, and I collected dirt from each place that I went, each grave site of Johnny Cash. I even went through Graceland, and I picked up little fuzzies all over the Graceland floor. That's where I heard God telling me in the living room that much like through this, I want to do through you. Meaning, I'm assuming rock and roll ministry, and I continued to go through the house. I didn't know if somebody would throw me out or not, but I just kept looking for little fuzzies or something that I thought might be part of Graceland, of littleness, that I could put into my little magic potion, which was dirt that I got from Johnny Cash's grave, was what started us. And then I had my fuzzies, and I went out to Elvis Presley's supposed grave, and there was 2 rocks, 2 little stones, and I took them and I put them inside of this magic potion. It was a little plastic like this. So it was like this. Sure. Information that I have on it. So I might have to delete that. But anyway, it was like a pill that you get at a prescription pharmacy, a pill bottle. And then I went to Carl Perkinson's grave, and that, if you've ever been there, is uniquely different because it's kind of like in a concrete wall. I don't know if it's ashes or not. Not right now. I don't want to talk about it because I don't really remember all the details. I just remember what it looks like, kind of. It was in a wall. And there was blue. They were artificial flowers, but they were very pretty. And I put one in my hair. And I hope someday I can go back and put real flowers there to apologize. But I explained to all the different grave sites what I was doing, why I was doing it. And then, of course, I went down to Mississippi. And in Mississippi, I actually sat on the wall where Jerry Lewis Ranch is. And I said, before I started to sing my songs, I said, God, you say that there's power in words. When I'm done with these 6 songs, I want the gate to Jerry Lee Lewis's ranch home to open up. I looked into the camera that was there and I sang my songs, and just as I was done, the gate opened up. It was his personal assistant, and she was coming down the road to get ready to turn in, and my car was in the way. So I went to get down off the wall, and when I did, was it a brick or a stone, had fallen out, and I was kind of nervous because my car was parked right against it so I could climb up onto the wall. I'm not much of a climber. And I kind of stumbled a little bit on my way down. And I asked her if I could have a lock of hair from Jerry Lee Lewis. I wanted to add it to my magic potion. And I didn't tell her that, I don't think, but I asked her if I could, and I don't know if she saw me as weird, so I'm sorry if I startled her, and I did apologize for it. And she went in. He was tired. He just got off the road from touring and doing a show, and but she brought me out a candle, and I posted that on my Facebook and my Flickr account. And she told me that I could have, was it the brick that from the wall, or the stone, that I knocked out? She said that I could have it and take it home with me. I had pictures of it when I was at my sister's house. This is during the time after, I kissed Sun Studio floor, and 6 days later I had like these really bad cold sores all over my lips. I mean, I got them a few times when I was younger and stuff, and like every year or so I'd have an outbreak, but this was really, really bad. Like my whole upper lip was cold sores all over it, and it hurt really bad. So I didn't know if I got infected when I kissed the floor at Sun Studios or not. I don't know if that's what happened, or if there was some kind of electrical jolt that went into my mouth, but obviously I had mentioned about the hotel I was staying at in, it was kind of like right beside West Memphis. When I woke up, all the power, or when I got home, if you will, all the power was out for nearly 24 hours. And the lady told me that all of West Memphis had lost power for nearly 24 hours. So it was a unique experience for me to go through all this. So this is how crazy, desperate, in love with Elvis, in love with the 50s, my desire to find that producer that would believe in me, and where would life go, I don't know. But I don't know exactly everything I was thinking, but I was really locked in like a spell. I'm okay now. I think the spell has been broken. What I wanted to get at is I had stored it up in my closet shelf over at Huber Heights, and it was for a few months. Obviously, I carried it with me and everything, and I opened this up. When I opened it up, it scared me. And why did it scare me? Because inside the pill bottle, where all the particles were that I collected and saved, came like a little weed, and it had a crown of thorns. It was identical to a crown of thorns, is what it looked like. It was a weed in the shape of a crown. That freaked me out. I'm not 100% sure if I took pictures of it or not, but because I seen and witnessed what I did, it was time for me to get rid of that. And I threw it away, and no more anything that comes close to doing some kind of witchcraft or magic potion spells or anything like that. But before I got rid of it, I did a daring thing. What do you think? I inhaled it. Not all of it, but I inhaled it. Bottle. I did it very fast. I didn't know, what it might do to me or not. But then it kind of freaked me out because I felt like I'm kind of going overboard with this. So I ended up throwing that away. And I said, God, I will not ever do anything like that again. I didn't know if I was messing with something that would be more perceived as satanic or something that's more of witchcraft. But I knew that when I saw that crown, and I had to, and I seen the stones were still in it and stuff, from Elvis Presley. I got to be honest, I wish that if my life circumstances would have been different, I think I would have kept it. But I was going through a lot of moving, coming back. I was kind of living with the dreams that I was having all the time and the different experiences. I ended up throwing it away. True story, I wrote a song called Gypsy Sworn. It talks about breaking a spell. That's what that was created for, was to break a spell, if there was any spell put on me when I was an escort. I met a gypsy when I was in Delaware, and I talked about that. And shortly after he left, I got a call from somebody I haven't spoke to, just like he said I would, for like a month and a half to 3 months. It ended up being my sister. We haven't spoke for a very long time. And I was grateful to hear her voice. With that being said, I wanted to make sure that any spell that was put on to me was broken. And I'm convinced it was. I have peace. My peace is Jesus Christ. Okay, so finishing transition. Washed out, old blues. Had wall sayings all over the place. I mean, my room was always decorated. I apologize to Daddy for this, but I kept putting thumbtacks in all the words all over my bedroom walls continuously. I was putting things up that were vibrant to me, that resembled 50s rock and roll girl. My desires for a music ministry. I had pictures of Joel and Victoria on my wall to remind me to smile. I had Elvis Jr. I made a sanctuary in my bedroom, in my front room, of Elvis Jr., posters and memorabilia that I got from him. I used to listen to his music on my computer. I have pictures of that too online. And then I made a sign and put it on my bedroom door called The Promised Land, Tracilyn's Promised Land. And that was my way of trying to embed into my brain that I'm home. This is my home. This is my Graceland, Huber Heights. I was trying to make the very best out of it, so I was kind of like in my own little world within the house. I can imagine what it was like to other people that were visiting or people that lived there. I was probably a weirdo to them. Very childlike spirit. Let's see. I loved the bathroom very much. It had a see-through glass, sliding doors, and I really, really liked that a lot. And the lights that used to light up, it's in one of my videos called I Know. It looked like they were kind of like for pre-stage performances, kind of like a dressing room, is what it kind of reminded me of. And they would heat up the bathroom. If it was cold, you could turn on the light switch, and it would warm up the whole entire bathroom before I would go in to take a shower. I really, really loved that. At times, it was challenging for me to share a bathroom. At this point, I'm kind of realizing that I want to be more pampered, spoiled. I would like to have my own kind of setup, master bedroom, if you will, with my own bathroom. And that probably comes from Daddy's master room had its own bathroom and everything. And I was kind of thinking, I would really, really appreciate having a headquarters at the house ministry, meaning I would have a recording studio or a room big enough that I would have like a master suite with my recording studio in it, where I wouldn't disturb anybody while I'm recording and I could play. I have to be able to play 24 hours, 7 days a week when I'm recording, rather than being on some kind of limited time slot. As well, I realize that I do need a lot of time alone, and I do conversate with myself all the time. I used to pray all the time, and then I got to the point that I invest a lot of time speaking to myself and trying to build myself up, because a lot of what I was facing in the world, a lot of what felt to be tearing down. So my words, what I started, learning through watching online pastors and stuff, was to build myself up. So that's why I would put words all over the bedroom. That's why I would shout things out in the privacy of my room. I wrote "I am thankful" in my second bedroom, and Daddy and one of the girls that were staying there had walked into the room, and they saw me crying at the dresser. This dresser right here. Right here is where it was. I was sitting there, and I had tears pouring down my eyes, and I was trying to write out all the things I am thankful. I am thankful that I met you. I am thankful for your son. I am thankful, I am thankful, I am thankful, I am thankful. And when he opened up the door, or walked into the door that was opened, I was sitting there and I had tears pouring down my eyes, because I wanted him to know I am very, very, very thankful. Something inside of me said I am extremely thankful, but it seemed like every words that were coming out of my mouth, all of them, were like perceived as being negative. My whole outlook on life was negative and stuff. So I was trying to reverse that process by determining to write down in song a list of everything I was thankful for. And that's where "I Am Thankful," the song that I wrote, came from. Quite the experience. Let me see. I was very depressed. Major depression. I suffer from major depression. And this was a really, really, really bad case of it while I was living there. Constantly looking back, constantly reminding myself of the traumas that I've been through, that I perceived as traumas. Let me see. I wanted to change things for the better. I really did. I was really set on, I have to be able to accomplish this. So during this time staying at the house, I did a lot of personal self-help, if you will. Reading literature and stuff, power of the mind, power of words. I got involved in The Secret. I don't know if any of you have, but I started reading literature similar to that, watching the movie. I sat down one time on the floor of my first room, and I had asked Daddy, pointed it out to him and showed him, and that's where I was at that time. Desperate. How I didn't realize what my true needs were. I didn't realize how to clearly get my life organized in a manner that I can heal from yesterday, get to where I am today mentally, and then start preparing life that I desire. Happiness, fulfillment, contentment. Things with my music, wanting to play with other people and stuff. While I was there, I had an orchidectomy done up in Cleveland. And what that is, it's a removal of your testes, your testicles. The reason that I did that was because I realized that I don't have the financial means to be able to continue to see the doctors that I was seeing. It can be quite expensive when you're paying everything with cash. And I did not have the health insurance at the time. So what I did, in order to stop taking testosterone blockers, while also taking estrogen, and I think I was on another hormone as well, I figured that it was time for me to be very serious about anchoring down. I've invested a great deal of time, money. I worked really hard for this. I really wanted the full, complete surgery, and I was waiting for that for reasons that maybe I'll discuss sometime. But right now, I got to take care of this and stop the testosterone from a way a transsexual female would describe it as kind of as destroying the body. Okay? Because we identify as female. And though I don't want to get too deep about that right now, I had my testicles removed. When I had the testicles removed, I had my daddy go with me to take me because I didn't have anybody else to go with me. We had gotten, after the surgery, we stayed at a local hotel in case there were any problems. I slept. Now, after the surgery, I had a couple copies, which I might show at some point, a couple copies of a letter that stated clearly what procedure was done, and that was for my record to do other things throughout my transition that I may or may not explain later on. With that being said, at some point I realized by the time we got home and I was recovering from the surgery for a day or two, I realized that I had several copies of this document. One of those copies was missing. Now, where did it go? I questioned, and the bottom line was no document was taken. And I knew very well that I had X amount of copies of that document that day. I had given them to the person I was staying with at the house. One of those documents was missing when I got them back. Okay? Now, what am I supposed to do in a situation like that? I called the doctor to verify. They told me how many copies they gave. I said, I only have this many copies. Well, that one copy was taken. Now, being that there was only 2 people in the hotel room, who do you think took the other copy? Or was it lost? Okay, that hurt me a lot. Because at this point, I'm realizing that it might be true that there's not a whole lot of people I can trust anymore. Just myself. And you'll find out later on that there were more legal documentations taken from me. The one thing I loved about living in this household, especially with the gentleman, is he was into nutrition, eating healthy food. Trader Joe's was introduced into my life. I never knew Trader Joe's before coming to Dayton, Ohio. I love a lot of the products that Trader Joe's sells. I'm not saying whether it's good or not good. A lot of it is organic, or so it's promoted that way. And it really gave me something that I appreciate. I love fruits and vegetables, spinach salad. I love that very much. The Trader Joe's peanut butter, their chocolate syrup is my favorite. And I grew up loving Hershey's, so this was a huge difference. I never thought anything would surpass that in my mind. Trader Joe's chocolate syrup, Esther Price's chocolate, most certainly has shown me that there is really good chocolate in this world outside of just Hershey. I still, I don't really eat Hershey anymore because I'm in Ohio, and I don't know if there's Hershey bars here or not. I don't really eat much candy anymore. So, and a lot of that is because the person I was living with, he got me into wanting to eat healthier. I got introduced to rice milk, and a lot of organic foods, getting on supplements to help your immune system fight off and anything from skin rashes or just to be healthy, a healthy diet. The one thing that I didn't like within that healthy diet was he was most certainly a meat eater, and he could sit down and he could eat a lot of meat in a sitting. And I, especially at that time, I was getting away more and more from meat. I would appreciate like white meat or a little bit of fish every now and then, but the truth of the matter is, I realized I'm not much of a meat eater, and if you go back and listen to my life story, you'll find out even as a kid, I remember as early as Lafayette Street, I would always tell my mom, please don't make me eat the meat. And she would get hurt because she was trying to get me to eat some kind of substance, food, to keep my belly full, because I was complaining all the time I was hungry too. So that was hard on her, and I continued on, and I'm still like that. Now I eat tuna fish salad and stuff like that. I still eat meat, but I try to minimize it, and it's usually right now it's because of a budget thing. I don't have the finances. I want to eat strict, I want to be a vegan. So non-dairy products. I noticed a huge difference when eating non-dairy products. I noticed a huge difference when sticking to a vegetarian diet and vegan. So my energy changes, my mind starts to clear up a lot more. And during this time living at Huber Heights, my mind was foggy. All I could remember is everywhere I looked outside, it was blurry. My mind's foggy and stuff. This healthy food and being on supplements is starting to help me some. Not solely, not fully, but it is starting to help some. I mentioned I love the house. The people that owned it prior, if you hear this message, know that I really love you very much. I'm glad that I had the opportunity to meet both of you, and I'm very grateful that you both accepted me, in your life. And the lady that had lived in the house, she's the one who showed me my first room, and she had mentioned it about being a child's room, one of her children's room. And she's like, which one would you pick? Do you want this one over here, or would you like that one there? So, she invited me into her home to share me, to give me a showing, and she also wished me well and enjoying living there. She really made me feel at home in the house upon moving there. And she also helped me out with costumes. I have one in a green costume that I went to a Vikings festival back in 2010, and she is the one who helped me get the costume together. And that was the time I was friends with another transsexual female that was living there too, and she let me, use her wings and stuff like that. So there's very memorable moments that I had at the house with the girls. It wasn't always catfighting and stuff. That we had a lot of memories of good times. And I did with a person who actually owned the house and stuff too. Understand that I really love this person very much. He is my daddy. We went through a lot of crazy things, and a lot of it is because what I'm realizing is I was bringing with me stuff that happened when I was an adult entertainer. There was a large group of what I believe is Satanists. Okay, people who are into sadism, Satanists, they take people who are in to what they would call the adult entertainment industry in a mild form, and in my opinion, they start trying to convert you over into BDSM. From BDSM, it gets into sadism and then even satanic stuff. All of it could be portrayed as being more satanic stuff. If you're in the industry right now, there's a lot of things that you should be informed about. Most likely you are being monitored the second you start putting ads up on any adult entertainment site. You're being monitored. Once you be monitored, you'd be surprised how closely they can watch you in whatever home you're in or hotel room you're in. They can watch you when you're traveling. They monitor people very, very close. And in my opinion, who is it? I don't know who it is. I relate it to being Satanist. Okay? And in my opinion, they try to, even with me, to wreck the lives of, if you're starting to come together in a foundation, like for instance where we were in Huber Heights, It was people coming together in the trans community, in and out of the trans community. But there were people there that were trying to build a home of love and support and trying to get their needs met and be active in the world, however that looks, whether it's getting a job, going to college, in other words, trying to get their lives straightened out and move forward. With that being said, with this mind technology stuff, it's real. And they get into the minds of the people living within the home and they divide it up. They do it by getting into the thoughts. They do it, believe it or not, they try to dominate and control and oppress and create. Look it up. Look up electronic harassment and you will find out. And what I'm realizing is this: they divide up houses for whatever reasoning that they have. With me knowing that I was an escort, and I can look back on my own life, and I have quite the stories that I shared about being an escort, I realized that I was being stalked by something pretty evil. And what I've realized is the person that I ended up meeting in Tennessee and then going to his house in Derby, New York, said a lot of things during the 2 weeks that I was first there that gave me a full realization that this is the person, if not one of the many, that have been watching me and purposely trying to mess up my life. Okay, I believe they're the ones that are on my social media pages, taking things down, changing the view counts, removing friends from my friends list. There's all kinds of things, like my files missing from Dropbox. Okay, this is very serious stuff. And it might be, I'm convinced, a lot of the reason why my head felt the way that it did and why I was bedridden was because they beam something down on the brain and it keeps you in a very oppressive state of existence, making it very, very cloudy, making it very, very difficult to function. Okay? I believe that is how, when I prayed out the window for Elvis Jr., I didn't pray for Elvis Jr., I prayed for all the elements that made Elvis Presley come to me in a form, meaning a human form. That's what I said. Okay? And with that being said, I'm not saying that he's in on it. Okay? I'm not saying that at all, because what I realize is these people that have this mind control technology, they can play with people's thoughts and they can orchestrate people that might not be aware, or even people who are aware. They can communicate with the mind. Okay, they download information, meaning they know your every thought, and they also have the means to audio conversate with you if you can recognize the fact that it's there. That's why they were targeting me when I was on busking, to try to get me honed in and acknowledging that they can actually communicate with you just through the thoughts. How they do it, you'd have to research it and find out the details. A lot of people say it's this technology, that technology. I believe it's all via satellite. And that's the way whatever technology they have up in outer space is being used on Americans to keep them oppressed. Okay, overall the mass is to try to keep them oppressed and living in an order that they desire, which is a very oppressive state. When people start to, when it's not enough for various people and they start to become, it's like they instantly assign, at least by that time, they assign somebody to target them and monitor them 24 hours, 7 days a week. Look it up. You will find out that I'm not the only one who's talking about this. It's not complaining, it's the reality of it. Now, did it divide up the household? Did it create more problems? Remember, I said I would be talking about things in my bedroom, and then I would go downstairs and I would have conversations with others, and the same thing that I was talking about was starting to come out in conversations amongst us. Okay? which gives you a sensation that things that you talk about in the privacy of your home manifest through others as you go about life. So it was very unique for me to acknowledge these things, to the point that even the other people that were living there knew that I was complaining about the fact that I believed that my privacy has been invaded, and that there was either bugs in my guitars, or there was a chip in me, or my car was being monitored, but I was being watched very, very closely. Hooray, we got 3 more pages to go, and then we're done. Here we go. I would tell you right now to start journaling your life. Keep a file, keep a paper, keep writing the date, maybe put the time however detailed you want. Jot down at the end of the night or throughout the day little things that you're going through in your life, little unique things that come out of your mouth, words that you might not hear in normal everyday society. What I've realized is in the privacy invasion of my home and my conversations with others as well, and by myself as well, and praying, a lot of the things that I talked about in my ideas manifest in the entertainment industry. I'm convinced that humans are used as resources, as a means for others who observe and then use what they observe in their writings of music, whether it's commercials, whether it's movies, television shows. It could even be in politics, okay? I believe now how it's all done, I don't know the details. I'm not claiming to know all the details. And I don't want this to be the dominant subject of that. You can look it up and you will find out. Once you realize it, how closely we're being monitored, it can really upset you. Because all the things that you thought throughout your life since childhood, is there somebody watching me? Is there somebody who's kind that's watching me, looking out for me, guiding me? Or is it somebody who's evil? Or is it somebody just in general watching you? If you listen to my life story, it seems like there was always somebody watching me. Not just a God as an entirety. God is everything. Meaning a human being or a group of human beings were monitoring me ever since I was born. Okay. I always had questions about that. And I talked to a lot of different people. We talked about aliens and different things like that. You have to watch my other life stories, videos to maybe catch up with this one. I don't want to talk about that at this time. I remember at some point I was thinking that if anything, one day Daddy got ready and he drove away out of the parking lot, and I watched him out the living room window, and I started to cry a lot. And I thought at that time, I really, 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 really love him. And not only do I love him, I really need him in my life. And not only do I need him, I want him in my life. But all these other things are going wrong. It seems like as great as our relationship is, there's also areas within our relationship that are not so great. And it's like a 50-50. Even when I talk to psychiatrists and stuff, they were saying it's like a 50-50 and therefore it's not healthy enough. But I was in need. I really did love him. I do love him. The Jesus Christ that's living inside of him. The godly man I love. Sometimes I would be suspicious as to where he was going because of the activity that was happening. It was hard for me to digest as to whether or not anybody else was a part of some kind of club, private club, like the Illuminati, something like that. I'm not saying that he was, but I'm just saying sometimes the questions were there with what I was going through. He had mentioned about leaving a will for me, and in the will that way I would be taken care of and I wouldn't need for anything so long as I was careful. He would set something up in a will that I would have finances, and I could still presume and continue on with life, doing my music, being a voice for the transgendered community, helping others, being available to be a friend to others. Okay. Now, this is the same person that also told me they were going to help me with my SRS, and I'm not saying it's their responsibility. They said they were going to after the house sold. I shared in the story, my video, that he had a change of heart with that. Now, occasionally, even up to this point, he would mention once in a while. Like, I guess in some sense he felt like he really desired to do it, and he felt kind of obligated to do it because it was one of the things he promised me. I started to let go of that because I didn't know if he was using it as some kind of leverage or if he just was going through his own financial challenges. I didn't want to be a burden into his life. I realized it's my responsibility. I got the orchidectomy done. That's good for me for now. You know, maybe someday, some way, somehow, I'll be able to raise the finances and go to the doctor of my choice and investigate more, and I'll be able to fulfill that. But for now, I had to learn to put that on the wayside. And I didn't want him ever feeling responsible for that. I was very, very proud to be with him, especially when we would be in public. He would hold my hand, be very proud to walk with me. He did out me to various people at various times, which kind of a little bit bothered me. Let me tell you, he broke me of the fact he always told me, cut to the chase and just let people know right up front. If they can't accept the fact that you're a transsexual female, and let it go. Rather than living life, they're assuming that you're a genetic female, and then sooner or later it comes out. Some of the girls are very fortunate. They can go through their life and they don't have to say that they're a transsexual female because of their various circumstances. Other ones, myself, constantly having new relationships, never really settling into one or a few. Every time somebody finds out that you're a transsexual, more so not, they're like, whoa, I would have never guessed that. You know, and therefore you have heartbreak on both ends. So the longest I ever waited to tell somebody that I was a transsexual female was the gentleman I met at Walmart that I ended up being very good friends with for a while, and I waited almost 3 months, and it was because he was making advances at me. I was attracted to him, so I'm not upset about it. But the truth of the matter is, I kept being standoffish with it, and finally I was ready to give myself. I brought it up to his attention. We were about a month and a half to 3 months into our relationship. He couldn't believe it. He was, the expression on his face, and I was asking him, I held his hands down. And I said, please don't get violent. I never crossed any boundaries that I felt that you should be upset with. You know, I think it's important that you know. And when I told him, he did not know. And we ended up not sleeping together. Okay? But he never stopped inviting me to his house. We still went out to eat. He would joke with me in the beginning for a while that it was like God played a fast one on him because he would have never guessed. I don't know if he was saying that to build me up, so I felt really good and comfortable with myself. But, you know, he was a really good friend. I used to go and sit with him and on his love seat. We would do some things, and he would always treat me with snacks or like fruit. And we would have our fruit and some wine, and we would watch a beautiful view while listening to the Beatles or some classic rock and roll music. And occasionally he knew I liked Marilyn Monroe a lot. So he would get Marilyn Monroe movies, and we would watch them together in his living room. And then he left me share beautiful nights of sharing a bed with him. We never had intimate encounters, though. And I always valued at least the closeness of friends. Isn't that fun sometimes? You just have friends that you can go to bed with, sleep, talk until you fall asleep. And there was such a beautiful view out his window, seeing the city of Dayton, the sky, the lights. There was one neon light that was beside his apartment that I used to love very much. I used to fantasize and pretend that I was in Las Vegas. Because that's what later on became my delusional fantasy. Las Vegas showgirl. That's what I wanted to be while watching Joel Osteen. That was me surrendering to some form of truth. How I saw my inner spirit, vibrant, like a Las Vegas showgirl. So I was very proud to walk with my daddy down the street. He was not afraid to introduce me to his friends. Never made me feel like I wasn't good enough to meet or sit at the table to eat with any of his friends. I was always invited. Because of him, let me tell you, because of him, I got to meet a lot of people. And I had a lot of wonderful times. We used to walk down the street to go to get ice cream together. And he would hold my hand, and we'd laugh together a lot. At some points, he would mention about an age barrier, difference. And, can I tell you, if you're watching this, whoever it is, I don't believe in age. I believe in transition. And some of us who transitioned became maybe in this life form sooner than others who are coming along. And I don't believe that 1 year is a whole entire year like we know it. I believe that that's kind of a demonic way of imprisoning somebody and making them think that they only have X amount of time, and like what they call a year, you're getting a year older, and you're heading more towards a death. Well, what I really believe in is life eternal, and I believe that we transform. So, with that being said, we're transitional existences, and I'd love to talk and share more about that with you, and maybe it would help to give a new, fresh outlook on life. It has been very, very beneficial to myself in the way that I analyze things now. The appreciation. My youth has been restored. My childlikeness has been restored. And a lot of it has to do with reading the Holy Bible and Jesus Christ and acknowledging that the environment around us, all life forms, seeing the leaf fall from a tree, watching it transition on the ground, things like that, Let's see. To me, there was no one else but Daddy. I wanted him to be the only man in my life, and I wanted to marry him, but I also know the life that's inside of me that I want to do musically, and I was kind of thinking, you'd probably be much better off with somebody that could fill his needs much more, a quality of his needs. That I obviously, not that I was too stubborn to fulfill, but with my other heart's desires, I got to tend to those. So tending to those would have taken, it takes a lot of time to tend to those desires. And I want to touch base with that because I just want to say, if he ever comes across this, that I love you very much. And I'm always going to be your baby girl. I never wanted to cause any problems for you. I really miss having you in my life. You were my best friend. I'm always here if you ever want to talk to me. Say hi. I'm sorry I came to you in need versus just as being me. A lot of who I am, or a lot of who he is, carries with me all the things that he taught me. And he taught me a lot, and I'll go over some of that in the future. At these points when I'm living at the house, I don't know what's going on. I need to figure these things out. I worked on my music project. I mentioned about the Facebook. I made a dream folder. So I was posting all my dreams in a folder online. I learned this by reading books. And it didn't say about Facebook. It was about collecting pictures and stuff of things that you desire. And I would put them in my, what I called a dream folder online. I wish I would have left it there. It had anything from money to a Cadillac to a tour bus. It had pictures of people I was inspired by. A little bit of everything. And it wasn't like the people that I necessarily wanted in my life so much as elements that I saw within the people. I wanted to reflect myself. So, especially happiness. I did a lot of up and down postings. I would post things like I did in Dayton, Ohio, the slow song. I made it, and when I recorded it, I actually upped the track to make my voice sound higher. So I was insecure with my singing voice, not my talking voice, but my singing voice. So I turned it up a little bit, and then I posted it, and then for whatever reason I was insecure with it. I guess I knew it wasn't natural, and then I took it down. I was notorious for posting things, taking it down. My life story testimony, I put it up, I took it down. When I would do writer nights, there was people that would, a gentleman that would videotape, thank you, videotape and take pictures of the songwriters. Unfortunately, I would ask if he would take them down. Okay? And why? Not because I'm a control freak. It had to do a lot with insecurities, and also it may be possible, I'm not going to say it is for sure, it may be possible I've been under the influence with my thoughts by somebody who's using electronic harassment on me to prevent me and keep me from being public about my life with my music. In other words, I'm being used as a resource. I don't know how long ago I was that it started, but I was being used as a resource. Let's see. I had a very in-depth conversation with my daddy when I started the 50-song project, and I made the Memphis Blues. I painted my face, black, and like a blues, like an old-time blues person. And I went out and I used a man's voice. And I noticed that when I was getting myself together, that I realized that there was this weird sounding energy that was coming over me. I result that to electronic harassment today. But I didn't know it back then. I just knew something spiritually, I thought it was spiritual, was happening to me. When I went out and I recorded it, a video, I remember walking in the field and I felt like there was this settleness that was beginning to happen. Like I was entering into some kind of weird zone. And what I'm relating that to today is it was probably somebody beaming something at my brain, electronic harassment, a form of it. Also, I went and I talked to him and I cried on the front porch of the house in a little desk chair that's there, a little table chair. I explained to him that I didn't know how I knew this, but I was under the impression that somebody who was in a roller coaster years ago, I think it was in West Virginia, or was it South Carolina, North Carolina, somewhere in there. Somebody was on a coaster, a kid, somebody young, and they died when they fell out of the roller coaster. I told him that I didn't know how I knew this, but I was under the impression that, I don't want to say this for sure, that it was not an accident. Meaning, I don't know if it was a maintenance, something wrong with the roller coaster itself. Was it done intentfully? Was it not done intentfully? Was there something wrong with the coaster, meaning how they were sitting in it? I don't know if it was a push-up bar or what have you. For some reason, I just had this sensation of that. And he kind of left me know that basically my mind is the way my mind is, and that most likely it was an accident, you know. So I tried explaining to him a few times, and I couldn't get things out as clearly as I can today. Okay? I tried to explain to him various occasions that I realized that there's something more going on with my head. And what I've realized is this electronic harassment. That's what I realize now. And I wish I would have known it then so I could show him writings about other people who are going through something very similar, if not identical. Busking shared. So I shared about the busking experience. That's when I started realizing I'm being monitored very closely, and they're trying to send me some form of leadership in a direction I don't want to go, directions I've already been. They're trying to get me to convert from being a transsexual female into being a boy, trying to get me to take my nose rings out, to take my earrings out, to let my hair be its natural color, brunette, all kinds of things. And can I tell you, it was really irritating me with the fact that I felt like they were trying to reverse who I am. Also, when I started my garage recordings, I don't know if I posted this online or not, but I had mentioned that it appeared that the man in black, Johnny Cash, entered into the garage and he was standing behind me. Now, was that another form of electronic harassment, or was it really, in a spiritual sense, did Johnny Cash come and visit me during the studio time that day? I don't know. But I felt like it was Johnny Cash, and I felt like he was there to bring peace into my life. I was recording my music. I already talked about the various dreams of Ronnie James Dio coming to me. I don't want to talk about too much, but I had a lot of rock star dreams while living at Huber Heights, living at Catherine's. Obviously, Elvis came to me quite a few times in my dreams. I talked about that. I made postings about that. Okay, so I don't know what's going on, if it's people who are playing with my mind, is some of it real, is some of it not real? You know, I don't know. But I do feel that I'm being watched very, very, very closely. Now, I'm going to change this battery because it's about ready to be drained. And we got 2 more pages to go. We're going to start with our kitchen heart. Remember that. Heart. Okay, I am back. Let's try to get through this pretty quickly. Okay, I feel much better now. While in the kitchen at Huber Heights in 2012, I had given myself a sermon. I was home alone. I gave myself a sermon in the kitchen, and it had to do with heart. Okay, at that time I'm thinking heart down here. I didn't realize heart up here. And with that being said, I said it's like like we all have a starter kit in our heart. A true ourselves. And it's a starter kit of what it is that we love to do. For me, for instance, I put it on the kitchen table. I pretended that I opened it up. And inside was an acoustic guitar, a cat outfit, and 50 songs, which I call my 50 song project. With that being said, I take the cat outfit, I put it on, I take my guitar, I start trying to play my songs and sing, and I was exclaiming how exciting it is to open up your heart and receive the gifts that God has inside for you. With that being said, I also mentioned how amazing it would be to see the kitchen filled with a whole bunch of people, or to do a sermon with a whole bunch of people that have their heart laid out on the table. They could open it up, surrender to their truth, and in it, see what their starter kit is. Okay, like mine was a cat costume. Like this. How exciting that would be to see, other people's starter kits. And to go through and see how it all comes together for them. This was a time that I spoke to myself for probably 45 minutes, an hour or so, maybe even more. And I was really getting into the explicit details. Often I had mentioned in my videos that I had gone up into the mountains when I first started really turning to God and getting involved in churches and stuff, and I would preach to every living thing, and animals, insects, the trees, the rocks, the leaves, you name it, grass. I would preach to everything. Well, obviously there's no other humans around that I can see but me. Well, that's the same way it was within the house. Again, a lot of the people that lived there would complain that Tracilyn is talking to herself again. So I have a tendency, and still to this day, I talk to myself all the time. Would you not see that fit, that people who acknowledge that would be interested in eavesdropping and hearing what you're talking about today? For some people, in my opinion, it's entertainment. Like we watch television, they get the live entertainment by eavesdropping in on somebody, invading their privacy, and monitoring, watching them for whatever reason they do. At this time, it was right after that I seen Bon Jovi with a heart in a sword with wings on, like a logo for Bon Jovi. And can I tell you, I'm not saying that he did, directly or indirectly. It felt as though he somehow had access to knowing about that conversation that I had with myself that day. At the time, Bon Jovi was on tour, and Richie Sambora had evidently whatever happened and left, went back home off of the tour. I remember standing in the Oregon district specifically, and I used to, when I first started doing that, I was pretending that I was opening up for Bon Jovi. And I used to talk in between my songs. I had a PA system and stuff with my microphone, and I would do a lot of talking in between doing each song. And when pedestrians would come by and they would talk to me, then I would take time to talk to them as well. I was ventilating a lot, getting a lot of the toxins out of me. And can I tell you that I had mentioned something because I have been very observant of bands over the years. Very observant. And in my opinion on various things. And one of them is a lot of the times a band's longevity, their success, strives on the unity of their original bandmates being together. And that was something that I was talking about in the Oregon district at this time, that John and Richie kind of went different ways. For whatever reason, I don't know nothing about it except for, from what I perceived, Richie was not, in the articles, decided not to, they were on tour and Richie decided, to go home, get off the tour. Whatever happened, I don't know what happened. I don't want to say what happened. But it was right during the time when I was talking about subjects like that, topics, when it came to bands. I started to realize, if you look at my pictures that I have online, you can see me with a blue and white ragtop that I actually bought at Walmart, a car that I really loved, and I wanted it to be in my video for Ragtop Cadillac, as it gets recorded and stuff. Preferably in Las Vegas, I'll tell you. I wanted it to be in Las Vegas. I had visions of it. Now here's the thing. Anybody who knows me knows that I love the 50s. I love Elvis. I wanted to have a 50s style kind of ministry band. And with that being said, I saw an image on my Facebook page with Bon Jovi, meaning Bon Jovi himself, yes, the band, and a huge backstage prop of what appeared. It was not a Cadillac, it was something else that was very similar to this blue car that I had, that I ended up making into a promotional label for my CD, Ragtop Cadillac. Now here's the thing. I also mentioned that prior to that, I had met Bon Jovi while on the street busking at Fountain Square. He had approached me, and he mentioned he likes to make funny videos too, and then somehow did he ask me for a business card? Did I give him one? I ended up giving him a business card, and as he walked away, I realized during the conversation that it was him. I don't just jump to conclusions right away. I'm convinced, as he walked away, that it was he. And I also had met other celebrities while I was down there busking. So it was kind of like I was being, they were observing me, if you will. They would come up and, say hi or whatever it is and talk. And they would never say who they were. They would just talk about things. And then they would, go about their day. So obviously if you're standing in a big city like Cincinnati and you're busking, whoever's in town is going to walk up, maybe and be nice. Everybody always seemed to be nice and say hi and whatever. I was under the suspicion, potentially and possibly. Right now I don't want to get too heavy into it because I'm getting ready to investigate my copyrighted material. And I'm getting ready to do some extensive research, and I would highly recommend for you, if you are a songwriter, if you write poetry, if you do books, whatever it is, get familiar with the laws. Most people in mainstream industry, they know them quite well. They know what boundaries are and stuff because they've been in it for years. So they know the legal rights that artists have or authors have, and movie directors and stuff like that, or whoever's publishing companies, you name it. Okay, so people know the laws of the business or the trade that they're in for life. With that being said, I'm not assuming anything at this point. But I did have suspicion that somehow, some way, from my understanding, that Bon Jovi either had direct or indirect. Do you know what that means? Meaning through another party, was getting information off of, whoever was observing me, he was receiving information based on that. How he found out about me, I don't know, is what I mean. I will tell you this. My producer that I had in Pennsylvania knew people that were very, that knew who Bon Jovi was, knew Bon Jovi, at least in some level. When I was escorting and I was in Delaware, I was pre-warned that there is somebody very evil by the name of John that I should watch out for. While I was an escort, and I was in New Jersey, and I walked out my hotel door, and I walked down, there was like this trail that walked around like a park with water in it and stuff, and there were people that were there and they were fishing. And they had given me, in communication, an idealism of Doc McGee. Now, I don't want to say exactly what the conversation was about, but with that being said, obviously as somebody who was a huge fan of Bon Jovi throughout my childhood, I knew of this person. I don't know him, but I knew of him. Now, that was kind of unique for me to just all of a sudden come across, right? Yes, it was to me. Because I have conversations on a regular basis. I'm living my life for how many years? That's a rare coincidence to me. That's what some people would call it, a coincidence. I ended up meeting somebody, talking to him, and that's pretty much what we had talked about a little bit in our conversations while we ate and, socialized. Now, with that being said, with this producer that I met while I was down in Tennessee, the one that I'm saying is most likely a huge part of the electronic harassment, I was convinced that I definitely knew that he was somehow connected to Willie Nelson because of the Luck Films. Is it Lucky Films? Luck Films? Because of the encounter I had when I was at his house in Derby, New York, I was under the impression that he most likely also knows Bon Jovi and knows a lot of the other people in mainstream music and the entertainment industry. With that being said, from what I observed on my Facebook, I had an understanding of this. There was a high probability that I was being used as a resource, and I'm not going to say that he does it because I can't prove it, but there could be a slight possibility that Bon Jovi and people like him that have been around for a very long time, directly or indirectly, have the means to observe life that we don't have in our direct access. And therefore, for various reasons, especially independent artists of any kind, childlike mentalities, inspiration, if you will, I believe that I was being observed by either people that were connected to him, meaning that Stephen C. Johnson that I met, or by him himself. Now, I can't prove it, and I can't declare that it was an absolute, but I'm going to be doing a lot of research to find out, because I know that in my songs that I've written over the years, I use select words that a lot of people do not use traditionally in music, whether it has to do with titles, which are not copyrightable, by the way, or if it has to do with sayings or life circumstances that I was witnessing and testifying to. When I started to acknowledge this, I got to say that it really, really upset. I don't want to talk about that too much now because I'm getting ready, to do research on my copyrighted material and trademark name to see if I can come up with anything, whether it be portions of my music being used or in their entirety. I would say most likely not. But I would say, from my understanding, is most likely through a lot of people in the music industry that I have been being observed for a very long time. I obviously was not happy about this when I started to come to the realization that I was being used as a resource, is what I would put. Now, by who? I'm not saying who except for Stephen C. Johnson. Okay? That is who I would testify in court that I'm convinced that Stephen C. Johnson most certainly has been electronically harassing me. And I am convinced that they're all tied in together, meaning they call themselves a family. Okay? And if you ever wondered why people are in a position for a very long-standing time, let's just say that they may possibly have the means that you and I do not have. And therefore, in my opinion, very strongly, they're in a position they're not worthy of. We will talk about that a lot more coming up. So I noticed it with a car. Now this here, I got to be honest, there are plenty of other people with ragtop Cadillacs and songs and, people who love Cadillac in general. Now, I myself have not witnessed any current recording artists doing. So in my mind, outside of a select few people, it's not that I felt that I was onto something, it's that I really desired to do something that was based more like off the 50s era. So big band, string arrangements. I started to do stuff like that. Actually, Andy got me into it back in 2002. He was really, really big into doing string arrangements and everything. And that inspired me, on top of other music that I have heard throughout my life, to do big horn sections. For anybody who knows, I love Brian Setzler very much. Is that how you say his name? Seltzer? Setzler? I like him very much. His sound, his look, his playing style is incredible. He could use me as a resource. But I was past my Bon Jovi days in childhood, coming into my 20s and stuff. I would say by the time I was 25, it was definitely not my thing, okay? So, with that being said, I want to let it rest with that. I was under the influence by that time, this time when I was busking, that it was a high potential possibility that people in the entertainment industry, including that which of Bon Jovi directly or indirectly, was somehow either finding out about my life, or they were witnessing my life in some manner, or I'm convinced that there were people in the industry as well that were on my Facebook page as friends, maybe under fake usernames and stuff like that, or maybe their real name, I don't know. But nevertheless, that I was definitely being what I have learned, and I would dictate more of a gang stalking. Okay? Kind of all hoarding over an independent recording artist that's going through a lot of pain and suffering. Because the best work within an artist, in a lot of people's opinions, would be during their pains and sufferings. I say some of your best work, if not the very best work, can come out in your times of absolute happiness. When you're safe, and you're energized, and you have the real means to work with. And you have the freedom to do it. I believe that, I'm convinced that my best work could come out during those time. Pain and struggling, things take a lot longer to digest and to get out of your system. Very therapeutic, going through pain. I hope I never have to go through that, and I wouldn't wish it upon anybody, unless it makes you truly better and cleanses your spirit. Now, here we go. This is going to be another sensitive subject that I just want to touch base on for various reasons. I am very grateful that this person came back into my life through a phone call. I reached out recently, left a card at their home, and I'd asked them to call. They called me. We spoke. It felt like there was a lot of peace that happened during the conversation. I was really grateful for that. If they come across this, know that I'm thankful for where I am, you are, we are in a relationship today. But during the time that we all lived together, it was hell. And I'm sure it goes on both ends. In 2012, when I came back, I ended up going and doing my life story in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Okay? And if I'm not mistaken, in October of that time of 2013 or somewhere in there, I had spoke to my brother. He let me know how much he loved me. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was still homeless. I was living on a credit card, on several credit cards actually, and I was traveling around the country sharing my life story that is now still currently posted on YouTube. With that being said, I didn't have a home. I didn't know where else to go. I'm staying in hotels. Can I tell you, and I want you to know this very clearly, I was watching Joyce Meyer's ministries, and she insisted in her conversations to destroy credit cards. If God wants you to have it, then you would have it. And let me tell you something. It starts with the God that's in your head. Why wouldn't God want you to have a safe home to live in? The very best and purest food resources of the earth. Why wouldn't God want you to live freely and be happy, have every desire of yours fulfilled? Because I didn't have no way of taking care of myself, Joyce Myers, I had to live on credit cards. By the way, did I reach out to your ministry? Did I reach out to a lot of other ministries, explaining my situation and I needed help? And the best I could ever get from any church ministry was what? We'll be praying for you. Well, let me tell you something. In some retrospect, prayer may help, but I found it more helpful when somebody can actually give you words of advice, not even words of encouragement. Direction, serious direction. I can't tell you how many countless ministries and homeless shelters and people that I kept reaching out to. I don't know what to do. I'm homeless. I don't want to live like this. How do I get needs met? Mr. and Mrs. Government, why is it so complicated when a person is homeless that they do not know? We have all this promotion of advertisement and commercials for all this unhealthy things, all these things that screw up our lives, all these prescription pills that simply announce all the side effects that it has. But we don't have any information. Are you in need? Are you homeless right now? Do you need to get yourself off the street and into a safe haven? Do you need healthy food and water, clothing? Do you need to have at least a sensation that somebody on the earth cares? Well, here's what you do. Why don't we have that? Well, we don't. At least we didn't then. And the truth of the matter is, I reached out to these people and nobody, there was always, well, we don't help transsexuals. Well, we don't help people that are over a certain age limit. Well, guess what? We're full. Or what? We'll be praying for you. But the truth of the matter is, nobody would tell me. I didn't know what to do. And nobody can really tell you what to do, but they can sure as heck point you in a direction. I don't know exactly what the answer is. I think I will in the future. I'll have a whole list of answers that could be applied. But the truth of the matter is, I remember how I felt when I'm living on these credit cards, and all I could think to myself is I was listening to this lady speak on my YouTube or on online, on the internet, online, and she's saying, if God wanted you to have it, you'd have it. Well, doesn't God want me to have life, Joyce Myers? Let me ask you something. Does God want me to have life? Did you ever consider for a second that the worst advice that could ever be given is get rid of the credit cards? They could be your life savior in a time of need. Mine were. And if I would have taken your advice, my ass would have ended up right on the street. And who knows if I would be alive today. That is the most horrible advice you could give to anyone. If you have any credit cards, I'm telling you, Tracilyn is telling you, keep them somewhere safe. Hold them for just in case moments. Do not listen to her and get rid of them or refuse to use them, because if God wanted you to have it, you'd have it. I'm here to tell you God wants you to have every desire of yours fulfilled. It's that we have not been taught properly. People go on a high horse speaking about all these different subjects, but they leave out all the important information, like what God is, but every word you ever heard your whole entire life. I don't remember any subject being a focus on that. Every word you ever heard your whole entire life, including what you heard in school, including what you hear on the radio, including what you hear on television, including what everyone's saying when they say God is best left out of schools. We prefer to leave God out of schools. Why is that? We want to take God out of everything. Do you know if you take God out of anything, there's no life? God is everything. My advice to anybody who hears this message is pick up a Bible. Read it. You will learn that most of what you've been taught through society as a whole that has to do biblically is nothing but lies. If it's not preaching a message that God is for you for life, God approves of you, God loves you, God accepts you, then it's not real. It's lies. It's what they would call Satan. If I wouldn't have had my credit cards, I would have never made it. Always, always hold on. If you have 1 or 2 credit cards or more, keep them in a safe place. Use them very sparingly. Save them for if you ever have a serious need and nobody will help you. No ministry will help you. No organization. Government, where do we go? We need help. We don't want to be on the streets. We didn't do it to ourselves. What do we do in a time of need? This is how I'm feeling back in 2013-ish. I gotta switch this over, and then we'll get back into our last page and a half.